Welcome to Silver Heist. Thank you to our returning subscribers and guests. Are bank safe deposit boxes a safe place for you to keep your valuables and family heirlooms? Well, I'm going to share with you a credible news story that makes you wonder that for a bank, the more they speak of their honor, the faster I counted my spoons. So this is from the New York Times, and this was from July 2019. Safe deposit boxes aren't safe. When Philip Ponies opened box 105 at his local Wells Fargo, he discovered it was empty and that he was totally unprotected by federal law. In the early 1980s, when Philip Ponies moved to New Jersey from Colorado, he needed a well-protected place to stash his collection of rare watches. He had been gathering unusual pieces since he was a teenager in 1960s Poland, fascinated by the intricate mechanics. His hobby became his profession, and by the time of his relocation, Mr. Ponies was an internationally known expert in the history and restoration of high-end timepieces. At first, he kept his personal collection in his house, but as it grew, he wanted something more secure. The vault at his neighborhood bank seemed ideal. In 1983, he signed a one-page lease agreement with First National Bank of Edison in Highland Park, New Jersey, for a safe deposit box. Over the next few decades, the bank, a squat brick building on a low-rise suburban street, changed hands many times. First National became First Union, which was sold to Wachovia, which was then bought by Wells Fargo. But its vault remained the same. A foot-thick steel door sheltered cabinets filled with hundreds of stacked metal boxes, each protected by two keys. The bank kept one, the customer held the other. Both were required to open a box. In 1988, Mr. Ponies rented several additional boxes and stored them in various items related to his work. He separated a batch of personal effects, photographs, coins he had inherited from his grandfather, dozens of watches, into a box labeled 105. Every time he opened it, he saw the glinting accumulation of his life's work. Then on April 7, 2014, he lifted the thin metal lid. Box 105 was empty. I thought my heart would fail, Mr. Ponies said. He paused in his retelling of the memory. At age 67, he has a strong Polish accent and speaks English carefully. He struggled to find the right words to describe the day he discovered his watches were missing. I was devastated, he said. I was never like that in my life before. I had never known that one can have a feeling like that. There are an estimated 25 million safe deposit boxes in America, and they operate in a legal gray zone within the highly regulated banking industry. There are no federal laws governing the boxes, no rules to require banks to compensate customers if their property is stolen or destroyed. Every year, a few hundred customers report to the authorities that valuable items, art, memorabilia, diamonds, jewelry, rare coins, stacks of cash, have disappeared from their safe deposit boxes. Sometimes the fault lies with the customer. People remove items and then forget having done so. Others allow children or spouses access to their boxes and don't realize that they have been removing things. But even when a bank is clearly at fault, customers really recover more than a small fraction of what they've lost, if they recover anything at all. The combination of lax regulations and customers not paying attention to the fine print of their box leasing agreements allows many banks to deflect responsibility when valuables are damaged or go missing. The big banks fight tooth and nail and prolong and delay, whatever it takes to wear people down, said David P. McGuinn, the founder of Safe Deposit Specialist, an industry consulting firm. The larger the claim, the more likely they are to battle it for years. In the days after Mr. Ponies found his box empty, he began piecing together what had happened. Wells Fargo had apparently tried to evict another customer for not keeping up with payments, and bank employees had mistakenly removed his box instead. After drilling number 105 open, the bank shipped its contents to a storage facility in North Carolina. After Mr. Ponies discovered the loss, Wells Fargo sent back everything it had in storage, but some items had vanished. In a 6-page report filed with the Highland Park Police, Mr. Poniz described the watches, coins, documents, and other items that were gone. Using auction records and sales reports, he estimated that their combined value was more than $10 million. That would make it one of the largest safe deposit box losses in American history. Of the 19,000 bank robberies reported to the FBI in the last 5 years, only 44 involved safe deposit heist. Banks increasingly regard safe deposit boxes as more of a headache than they're worth. They're expensive to build, complicated to maintain, and not very lucrative. The 4 largest American banks, J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup, really install them in new branches. Capital One stopped renting out new boxes in 2016. A dwindling number of customers wanted them, a bank spokesman said. All of the major national banks would prefer to be out of the safe deposit box business, says Jerry Pluard, president of Safe Deposit Bank Insurance Coverage, a small Chicago firm that insures boxes. They view it as a legacy service that's not strategic to anything they do, and they've stopped putting any real focus or resources into it. He estimates that about half of the safe deposit boxes in the country are empty. The number of bank branches in the United States has been steadily declining, down 10% in the last decade, and safe deposit boxes are being relocated, evicted, and sometimes misplaced. In Maryland, a large bank closed several branches and lost track of hundreds of safe deposit boxes, according to a lawsuit filed by a customer who said he lost gold and gems valued at $500,000. In Florida, a customer accused Chase of losing her box and all of its contents, coins, jewelry, and family heirlooms worth more than $100,000. She sued. A federal judge ruled that she had waited too long to file her negligence claim and decided in the bank's favor. In California, a Wells Fargo customer said the bank accidentally re-rented her box. The diamond necklace and other jewels she had in it were never found. Safe doesn't mean safe. When such cases go to court, the bank often has the upper hand. Liana Sarabekian and her husband Agassi Halajian leased a large safe deposit box at a Bank of America branch in Universal City, California in 2012. They filled it with jewelry, cash, gemstones, and family heirlooms that they wanted to keep safe as they renovated their home. They paid $246 for a 1-year rental. 9 months later, Ms. Sarabekian returned to the branch and discovered her box was gone. The Bank of America location was closing, employees told her. The bank had drilled open all of its safe deposit boxes. The bank said it sent multiple letters to customers about the branch closure. Ms. Sarabekian said she never received them. When Bank of America retrieved her items from its storage depot, many were missing. The bank's own before and after inventories, written by its employees, showed discrepancies, according to court records. Among the items that vanished, Ms. Sarabekian said, were 44 loose diamonds, a gold and diamond necklace, valuable coins, and more than $24,000 in rare United States currency. She sued the bank in Los Angeles Superior Court, seeking $7.3 million. Bank of America sought to have the case dismissed, citing language in its lease agreement stating that the renter assumes all risk of leaving property in the box. But in 2017, after a month-long trial, a jury awarded Ms. Sarabekian $2.5 million for her lost items and an additional $2 million in punitive damages. Bank of America then challenged the verdict, arguing that any recovery should be restricted by the terms detailed in its rental contract. Quote, the bank's liability for any loss in connection with the box, for whatever reason, shall not exceed 10 times the annual rent for the box. Judge Rita Miller agreed. She reduced the compensation for lost items to $2,460 and cut the punitive damages to $150,000. We were shocked, furious, and in disbelief that such a thing could happen, Mr. Halajian said. The attorneys were throwing stupid counter-arguments at us, asking, why would you put so many valuables in the safe deposit box? We were like, where else do you want us to put it? The word safe is supposed to mean safe. No regulator formally tallies customer losses in safe deposit boxes. Mr. Pluard, who tracks legal filings and news reports, estimates that around 33,000 boxes a year are harmed by accidents, natural disasters, and thefts. He often gets phone calls from people who are fighting their bank for compensation. I tell them it's hard, almost impossible, he said. What drives banks' conduct is regulatory oversight, and none of the regulators pay any attention to safe deposit boxes. This just falls through the cracks. If the banks do something inappropriate, it's very hard for customers to get any sort of relief. For over a decade, Mr. Poniz's Box 105 sat at the bottom of a 7-foot shelf in Wells Fargo's Highland Park vault, accessible via a metal-barred door with an old-fashioned crank. But halfway up a different wall in the vault was another Box 105, a product of the banks having consolidated several branches' safe deposit boxes into a single location and having kept their original numbering. Bank employees got them mixed up and emptied the wrong one. The lawsuit appears nowhere near resolution, and Mr. Poniz already has run up tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. The bank has spent a tremendous amount of resources and put them into defending the case instead of stepping forward and saying, "We made a mistake here, let's make it right," said Craig Borgen, another lawyer representing Mr. Poniz. The watches that vanished were the largest and most visually striking in his collection, Mr. Poniz said. He considered the trove to be his retirement fund. My impression about safe deposit boxes was that it was like you were putting things in Fort Knox, he said. Nothing could happen to it. He doesn't think that anymore. I'm not a financial advisor. You need to weigh the pros and cons of any system where you store your valuables. But doesn't it make sense that with all the economic uncertainty, there'll be some additional consolidation of banks, which could make this problem even worse? If you have an interest in using silver or gold as a vehicle to preserve your wealth, please watch one of our featured videos.